Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest up in the studio is David Zamarin, CEO and founder of Detrapel. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Thanks for having me.
So I think it's fair to say we can call you a kiddie entrepreneur. Your current company, your current product, you founded when you were how old approximately?
This company, I was 15.
15. So yeah, I guess you can call, in hindsight, we can call you a kiddie. Really impressive. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company and about your product? And then we could talk a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur.
Sure. So the company Detrapel is a protective coatings company. We make all types of different chemistries and chemical coatings that can be applied to a variety of surfaces and primarily fabrics that could then repel liquids and thereby stains. So it saves you time and money from having to replace or clean your items or your favorite belongings. And that was kind of the genesis behind the business. It started with me wanting to clean or keep my shoes clean rather. It ultimately.
So this isn't a risky business sort of scenario. The folks were out of town. You're 15 years old. Somebody dumped something on your sofa. I'm like, I got to find a better way to clean this.
No, it was more like I got into a very competitive high school and middle school, public school, but magnet school. They get the test to get into in Philadelphia, one of the top in the country. And as a gift, my grandparents gave me a couple $100, and I paired that with a couple $100 of my own. And bought some sneakers that I thought were ridiculously expensive and super worthless in the grand scheme of things. But to me at the time, they were worth everything. I hated getting them dirty. So that's kind of how the initial idea came about.
Wow. So the mother of invention. How do I preserve my very expensive sneakers and keep them showroom quality for one day being able to sell them on eBay?
Right, exactly.
See, you're an entrepreneur through and through. So tell us how you went from having this desired need to developing a company, because I'm sure a lot of pain and learning you experienced along the way. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, so I kind of the background to the story is I got into this high school and I looked around and I looked at my peers and I realized that we're all the same on paper. Like every student was exceptional academically. We had joined like multiple clubs. We were all in like robotics or some kind of athletics and so on and so forth. So I really started to think about, when I'm going to be applying to college, how am I really going to stand out? And so I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I was very entrepreneurial from a young age. So one of the classes I was taking, I think it was like a Spanish class, we were sitting in the classroom and we got this poster kind of passed around that mentioned youth entrepreneurship program, like an incubator. And I ended up applying. I was the only non-senior to get in out of the 20 kids that got in out of the several hundred, or I think it was a couple thousand that applied. And I still to this day don't know why I was accepted. I wasn't anything special. I was just very adamant about entrepreneurship. I really fell in love with the concept because that was the first time I ever really heard the word. Until then, I really knew that everyone was in business, was an entrepreneur, but now there's a clear distinction. And so I realized that I wanted to start this business, the shoe cleaning company, because some mentors of mine recommended that I pivot my initial idea, which was I wanted to come up with a film to keep my shoes dirty. I wanted to spray something that could be peeled off whenever it got dirty. And that way I had this outer layer, but I knew nothing about chemistry. So they said, well, why don't you start a shoe cleaning business? And at this time I was 14 years old. And I said, yeah, I mean, why not? Initially, I didn't want to because I had some pride about cleaning other people's shoes, but I ultimately pivoted the idea to clean and repair and condition sports teams shoes at local universities in Philadelphia. And so that business actually was very successful for me as a 14-year-old. And then ultimately, eventually, I started when I was 14 and I turned 15 pretty quick. So I was 15 years old running that business. And then I got an opportunity to sell the company within like 4 months, which was crazy. And again, it was an absorbent amount of money for a 15-year-old who really comes from nothing. So for me, I was fortunate to have strict parents and I wasn't allowed to just spend the money frivolously. And so eventually I sold the business. And in the summer I was thinking, well, what am I going to do next? And so I started thinking about my next venture. And that's when I started looking into competitors of what Detrapel does now. And I found out about nanotechnology.
So fast forward to finding out about nanotechnology and taking that and coming up with the concept or the idea of Detrapel, and taking that concept or idea and bringing it to fruition where there's an actual product. And now the only challenge is building a market and getting
Yeah.
distribution. So what is the trajectory? What has the pathway of that been? Is having the idea and the concept. It sounds like your first business that accelerated very quickly and sold. You didn't have to go through a lot of the pains and challenges of an entrepreneur building a market and getting distribution. I would imagine in your current company, there's been a little more of that. You just had to find customers in the first case. Now you've got to find customers and find a market for your product.
Well, it's definitely more complicated now because we're not just selling shoe spray or spray that's for consumers. We do, the majority of our business is industrial. So we work with manufacturers, whether upholstery or furniture manufacturers or carpet and rug manufacturers, whatever it may be, even automotive manufacturers that spray our products. And we have a variety of different chemicals now. We don't just have one protector for fabrics. We have stuff for food packaging. We have things for antiviral technology. I mean, we have a lot of different, very unique IP. So that's why we call ourselves an advanced materials company that's specifically focused in protective coatings. And that's what we do. We make all types of coatings that ultimately save you time and money, whether that's the other business owner that's involved or it's a consumer, because we do have a consumer side of our business. But yeah, I mean, I definitely had challenges with my first, I call it real business, which was Lick Your Soul. But definitely not the same. And I think I had a lot more, I guess, I was a lot more naive at the time where I thought I could easily, do anyone and everyone's shoes. So I loaded on as much inventory as I could to do. And that's how it ended up being relatively successful. But when with Detrapel, I mean, it's been 8 years now since I've been, since I started the company, and we've transitioned quite a lot into these other markets. And so that's where the real challenges come in, because as you mentioned, we do have to figure out how to find the right customers, how to find the right pitch, and more importantly, how to knock out the legacy players in the industry that frankly suck.
And I would imagine a lot of the legacy players are large conglomerates, probably chemical companies that everyone's heard of, household names.
3M, DuPont, Scotchgard, all those guys, Chemours, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you're up, it's the David versus Goliath story to some degree, getting an opportunity to get a foot in the door. But it sounds like one of your proof of concept and proof points is in the efficacy of your product versus what those companies may be doing. They got a lot of marketing dollars behind them, but whether their product actually does what it's supposed to or not. So very interesting. So you transition from dealing with teams to probably production managers or people making decisions, because if I understand correctly, most of your product is an OEM, is baked into the OEM product. And so
yes,
with the exception of your consumer division. And so you're selling to corporations that are utilizing your product within their product line. What have been some of the lessons? And you mentioned that your company obviously has accelerated growth. You're on your way to raising some external capital. What has the growth trajectory been like? How do you manage the expectations of prospective investors or other investors in terms of where you are today versus what your projections were? I'm imagining, just pure speculation, the pandemic may have been good for a company like yours. People spent more time at home. They bought more furniture and things of the like. So that may have been a little bit of a boon. But I imagine production challenges like anybody else, getting your staff together or making your product during the pandemic was challenging. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how you navigated your way.
Yeah, I mean, on the onset of the pandemic, we thought that there might be some serious problems with the business because we didn't know how we were going to sustain ourselves. But fortunately, being an in-house manufacturer of chemicals and all types of different products, we were able to pivot quite quickly and make hand sanitizer, cleaner, and disinfectant, and those did well. But also, as you mentioned, our regular business also picked up just because people were at home and wanted to protect their things on the consumer side. For a short period of time, industrial businesses were shut down, and no one really cared about our products. So that was a little bit difficult. But last year was the best year we've had so far. and probably will be, I mean, hopefully not, but likely is looking like it'll be better than it's going to be this year. And there are a variety of factors for that, but for us, the growth challenges are always there. Like, there's always going to be an issue when you're doing everything in-house. We don't outsource a single thing of our operation. Like, the only thing that we outsource is the printing of our labels and the courier boxes, which is done domestically in Massachusetts anyway. So we're very keen on doing as much as possible as we can in our own facility, whether that's R&D, manufacturing, production, packaging, you name it, shipping, we do it here. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but the primary reason is because we can control it. So last year, for example, when demand went skyrocketing, we were able to control our own production channels and increase our productivity by going from one shift, maybe 5 times a week or 4 times a week, to running 3 shifts, 7 days a week, and so on and so forth. And so having that ability and having automated equipment and a really state-of-the-art facility at the stage that we're in as a startup, even though it's been 8 years, I mean, I don't really count the first 4 or 5. But now we've been really pushing the envelope here with getting the type of equipment that we need, getting the automation that we need, and trying to manage our challenges forward, meaning that right now we have our constraints and we know what those are, but we also know how we can quickly pivot, and we have the plan if needed, if something did kind of switch overnight.
Wonderful. So something that age has taught you is the wisdom of planning, stepping back and looking forward to try and mitigate risk as much as possible. David Zamarin, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you and learning a little bit about your company and your products. If people wanted to reach out and speak to you more, various applications, learn about your products, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, best place is going to be either LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm not on anything else much often, but I get the notifications for those 2 specifically and nothing else. So those are the best ways to get to me.
Excellent. Our guest has been David Zamarin, CEO and founder of Detrapel. It's been a pleasure having you on Radio Entrepreneurs, and wish you the best of success in the rest of your journey.
Thank you, and likewise.
Maybe I have to check back when you're 25. I'm just kidding. Good stuff. It's really been a pleasure and inspirational to hear from somebody that had the vision and the bug so early on. So continued success. And we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.